2 Timothy chapter 2. 2 Timothy chapter 2. I want you to anchor a place there, and then also find a place in Psalms chapter 91. Psalms chapter 91. This is going to help us with getting to the scriptures we need to very quickly this morning, so that we can get to the end of the message for the time that we're going to pray. I want to give you, as you're finding that, a little bit of information up front, because it'll help you understand the moment that you're sitting in right now. I'm someone, and of course I've been here 2.5 years, and you've figured this out already. I'm an organized person. I like to schedule things. I already have 2/3 of my vacation in September planned already. I actually have appointments planned for December already this year. I like to plan things. We've been in 2 Timothy in this series called This Is Important, and that's where we would have been today in chapter 2 about being cleansed. And during my prayer time this weekend, and this is the first since I've been here in 2.5 years, I'll tell you this, God impressed upon my heart and clearly led me to the message that I'm going to share with you this morning, that addresses the current climate that we're in as a culture, that addresses something that I believe has become detrimental not only to our culture, not only to this country, but around this world. And unfortunately, it is a temptation to infect the church also, and to cause our faith to waver, and that is fear. Mm-hmm. True. Mm-hmm. Fear. So I want you to look with me in here in 2 Timothy. Paul's about to die. He knows he's dying. And he says this in chapter 2, verse number 14, to a young pastor listing in 4 chapters the things most important. And one of the things that was so important to him is he said to this young pastor, remind them of these things. Did you know probably 7/10 of my time as a pastor is strictly spent just reminding you about the things that you already know? You know God's alive, you just need to be reminded of it. Just this last week with someone that was going through a crisis in their life, and I was kind of trying to coach them and help them through it or whatever. When I talked to them the next day and they had a new perspective, they said this, thank you for reminding me of what was most important. You see, it's all about reminding you. If you've read your Bible very much at all, you will know that God really is in control, that God reigns, that God is more powerful than any other God that this world tries to prevent. God is more powerful than any virus. God is more powerful than any sickness. God is more powerful than the President of the United States. God is an almighty, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient God. He reigns, He rules, and He always will. In the midst of fear, we forget that. Fear is a thief, and it robs us of the very thing that we know we should be holding on to, and that's our faith in God. So reminders are really important. Let me tell you what reminders are good for. Number one, reminders are something that are given to us when we forget something. You know, you get that phone call from the doctor's office, it's 2:15, and they're like, sir, are you coming to the doctor? You're late. Or your wife or husband calls you and go, did you forget that today we were supposed to meet so-and-so at such and such time? They're reminding you of something that was forgotten. But another way that reminders come into our life is to remind us of something so we don't forget it. The older I get, I love using reminders. I'm a tech guy. I love all that. One of the things I love about my phone that I have, I can set up all kinds of reminders. You know, the alarm will go off and I know it's time to do something and I got to go take care of it because I don't want to miss that appointment or miss that task or whatever it was I was supposed to do. But the other day, I set 2 alarms to remind me of something, but I did not put on the alarms what it was reminding me of. And I spent the next 30 minutes asking everyone I knew that knew me, or anywhere where I thought I was supposed to be, if they knew what my reminder was for, so I knew where I was supposed to be. I even, at the bottom of that list, called my mama in Arkansas and asked her dad had a doctor's appointment or something that day, you know. A reminder is to remind you of something so you don't forget that particular thing. One of the most important things a reminder for is to remind you of what is most important. What is most important? What is most important for a believer in Jesus Christ is that you walk by faith, not by sight. Amen. That each and every day you decide when you get up in the morning, no matter what this day holds, because none of you know what each day will hold. None of you know what's going to happen in that day. So we make a decision when our soles of our feet hit the floor in the morning that today, no matter what comes, no matter what happens in my life, I will walk by faith, not by sight. I will trust God. I will fear no one and nothing in this day. One of the greatest reminders that you and I need, our pastor's read it already, but we're going to look at it. Look at it in chapter 1, verse number 7, 2 Timothy. For God has not given us a spirit of fear. Somebody say amen. Amen. Somebody say I'm glad. I'm glad. Somebody say that's good news. That's good news. Listen to this part, it gets even better. We not only not had the spirit of fear, but God even gave us something beyond that. But instead, it says here, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Now, you and I need to be reminded of that. We're done with 2 Timothy. Go with me to Psalms chapter 91. Psalms chapter 91. And this morning, I want to give you 3 reminders in the midst of fear. That when fear comes knocking in your life, knocking at the door of your life, that there are 3 reminders here that you need to remind yourself of, but not just remind yourself of, but live according to, so that you and I, in these dark times that we live, can live by faith and not by sight. Psalms chapter 91, we're going to begin in verse number 1 through 4, and we need to remind ourselves of the presence of God. Look in verse number 1, beginning. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him I will trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. One of the greatest things that we need to be reminded of, that in the midst of any fear, you can call it COVID-19, you can call it uncertainty, waiting on a test result to come back from the doctor. You can, whatever your uncertainty is, whatever it is, whatever fear comes knocking at your door, whatever shadow that you see in the darkness that causes your heart to begin to be troubled and begin to stir, whatever it is that's coming against your faith and causing you to look at things of this world instead of things of God. I don't know what your COVID-19 is. I don't know what your fear opportunity is, but I'm here to tell you, whatever it is, you need to first and foremost remind yourselves that you are the child of an omnipresent God, that everywhere you are, God is not only there, He was already there, He will be there, and He will never leave there. And the psalmist here knew this. He said, I will make Him my refuge and my fortress. Then he makes his declaration, my God, in Him I will trust. You and I need to be reminded of that. Because I had company coming this weekend, and I wanted to cook yesterday morning for them, for my daughter and grandkids and stuff. I didn't have enough eggs, so I went to the store to get a few eggs. Wow, boy, was that an encounter. I mean, that was the only time, because I'm one of those kind of, I don't like to shop anyways, so whenever I go get something, I like to go probably when most people aren't around, like right before they close, late at night, early in the morning, that kind of a thing. So I get to the store. First of all, I had a hard time even finding parking, And then I get there, and as soon as I got in the store, this is what I began to hear. I barely got in the front store of this one super center, and this lady was giving a what for to somebody that she thought was a manager on how come she couldn't find any paper towels. I go a couple aisles over, and somebody's giving them what for why they're out of so much produce. I go a little bit further, and what appeared to be a daughter and a mother, older mother and a daughter, arguing over whose fault it was that they ran out of toilet paper at home and there's none in the store. Now listen to me. In that moment, I realized, hey, I wonder how much toilet paper I have at home. I never think about it until I reach under the sink. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, that's right, that was the last one. You never really realize how good you have it till you don't have it. And so, all of a sudden, this is what began to happen. I'm being very transparent here with you. I'm not typically given to this, but I'm being transparent. Given the current culture we were in, I began feeling anxious. And I began thinking about my lack. And I began thinking about the things that I felt like I had to have. And maybe I really should be doing this. And maybe while I'm here, I ought to buy 4 dozen eggs instead of 1. Maybe I ought to buy 4 gallons of milk instead of 2. Maybe, maybe I do need cases of water. I mean, I know my water works at home every time I turn on the faucet, but maybe I need 12 cases of water, you know. And I began feeling this anxiousness coming up. I left my car right by the front door, went out to my car, popped open the trunk in my backpack, got out my headphones, put on my headphones, turned my iPhone on, and I put on praise and worship music, and I began to calmly stroll through that store, gather all the things that I needed, just the things that I needed, no hoarding, no going beyond. I'm not the reason they're out of toilet paper. And I began going through the store doing that, and I remember declaring to God, God, I refuse to be fearful. God, I choose to serve you. God, I choose to walk by faith. If I need something tomorrow, you're going to provide it no matter whether the store has it or not. You can drop it off by a helicopter or a SEAL team if you had to, if you think that I need it. And I'm here to tell you, it's time you and I live like that again. It may look like we're surrounded by fear. It may look like the enemy has us surrounded, but I'm here to tell you, I'm going to look at fear and I'm going to look at the enemy and say, I've got you right where I want you. I'm going to serve God. I'm going to trust Him, and I'm going to walk by faith, not by sight. And that is not mind over matter. That is the Word of God. It doesn't have anything to do. The Bible says there's power of life and death is in the tongue. I'm not talking about using that to my advantage so I can get a better car. I'm talking about reminding my soul of who the God is that I serve. Reminding those around me that my God is greater than anything else. You and I, in the midst of all of this difficulty, need to remind ourselves about the presence of God. He's with you no matter where you're at, no matter what you're going through. God is never going to leave you nor forsake you. He promised those things. It's a promise of God. Second truth that I want you to see as we walk through Psalms chapter 91, and that is that in the midst of fear, in the midst of any trouble, but especially in the culture we're in the midst of fear, we need to remind ourselves about the power of God. The power of God. Look at verse number 5. Let's begin there. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, nor of the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor of the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, and it shall not come near you. Amen. Mankind, humankind, has a real problem, and they have many of them, but one of them at the top of the list is they're fearful. They just are. Go back to pre-email, back when people used to write letters for all the teenagers in the house. Your grandparents explain to you later what writing a letter is. It's a text message with pen and paper. Ann Lander's Dear Abby article years ago, it was reported at one point that she received in excess of 10,000 letters every single month. Every single month. When she was being Ann Landers was being interviewed, and she was asked about these many letters, the reporter asked her if there was any one predominant thing, one particular thing that most people seem to be concerned about and talk about. The reporter said, without hesitation, she said, yes, fear. Fear. Then she went on to make this quote. People are afraid of losing their health, their wealth, and their loved ones. People are afraid of life itself. End quote. You see, we are a fearful people. National marketing firms even know that. They know there's two things that will sell a product, sex and fear. If they can make you think that you are sexier by driving a red car, you're more prone to buy a red car, to pick that color. If you think wearing a certain deodorant is going to make you more attracted to the opposite sex, that deodorant sales skyrocket. Fear also sells. Think about all the upsells that people have tried to give you recently when you go places. It's always fear-based. Well, if you don't get this, if you leave today, you don't get it. I'm just telling you, when this happens, you're on your own. It'll cost you X amount of dollars, so on and so forth. Fear-based. We are a culture that is consumed, not just because of COVID-19, I'm just talking period, consumed with and tempted to live in fear. It's so much that it fuels the psychology and psychiatry these days. We call them phobias. If you look online at phobia, I think it's phobialist.com, it shows you that phobia is an irrational, excessive fear of something. It is fear that is out of control. Here's a list of just some of the phobias that are on there. There's acrophobia, which is the fear of heights. Claustrophobia, the fear of closed places. Agoraphobia, the fear of open places. Neophobia, the fear of the new. Pathophobia, the fear of disease. Photophobia, the fear of lights. Ergophobia, the fear of work. I know a few of those. Ruthophobia, the fear of blushing. And the list goes on and on. I even found a phobia on there, people afraid of chicken bones, shower curtains, and doorknobs. We are a fearful people. Now listen to me, saints of God. I understand when unsaved people are afraid. I understand it. Because listen to what the Bible says in Proverbs 28:1. The wicked flee when no one pursues. The wicked flee just if they think somebody's coming. The wicked flees if they just think there's something in that shadow that they saw. Or they think there's something in that noise they heard. It says the wicked flee when no one pursues. But listen to me. That verse goes on to say this. But the righteous are as bold as a lion. And I'm here to tell you folks, it's time we stop living like the wicked and we start living like the redeemed. We are those who are righteous. We are those who are bold as a lion. We're not to live in these fears that come our way. So man has a fear problem. And God has a prescription for it. He has a prescription for it. 1 John chapter 4 says this. Let me read it to you. 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love. Amen. Who does the Bible say love is? God is love. Listen to me. Love is a person and his name is God. If God did not exist, love would not exist. God is not only the definition of love, He's the creator of it. He is the essence of it. He is the meaning of it. He is the end of it. Love has everything to do with God. And all that we know about love initially is only because God, eternal, lives. So in God, then, we can say, there is no fear. Who are we in as children of God? In God. He is in me. I am the temple of the Most High God. This body that He's given me, and God dwells there. Listen, there's no fear in love. Listen to this. But perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who has fear has not been made perfect in love. Did you notice that perfect love casts out all fear? Notice the qualifier there. It didn't just say love casts out fear. It didn't just say some kind of love. Because there's all kinds of love. You know what I'm talking about. There's that puppy love. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Some have said puppy love leads to a dog's life. But that's a whole other subject. You know? It's a whole other subject for another time. We'll let Pastor. I think that's one of Pastor's upcoming messages. We'll leave that one. You know, we'll sign that one to him. You know, you okay, Pastor? Pastor's like, I'll be okay in a minute, just don't look at me. Perfect love, not puppy love, perfect love. This is the kind of love, listen to this. The Bible says this, no greater love has any man than to lay his life down for a friend. Perfect love is what Jesus Christ did on the cross years ago. Not near as pretty as that one right there. And that kind of love casts out fear. So if that kind of love is in your life, what do you mean, Jonathan? That means if you've asked Jesus Christ to forgive you of your sins, you have been forgiven of those sins, and you are now made the child of God. And when you're made the child of God, you are now in God. And because you're now in God, that means that perfect love has entered your life. Perfect love showed up on your day of salvation Jesus came into the soul that you're living in, that's in your body right now. He looked around for fear, found it cowering in the corner, and looked at it and said, looky here, I'm here now. You got to go. This is my child, and they will not live in fear. However, come. When fear comes knocking at the back door, too often we answer and open it up. And I get it, it's because we're human in the human experience, but listen to me, that's the reason why we should run to God every time fear shows up. Every time. What do you do when you go to your best friend and you're in the middle of a crisis? All of a sudden, they're not in your situation. 20 minutes of a conversation talking with them, and all of a sudden you have what the culture calls new perspective. Oh, it's not as bad as I thought now. Why in the world are we not doing that with the God of the universe? Because I found that when I go to Him with my fears, I walk away going, it really wasn't near as bad as I thought it was. This isn't as fearful of an event as my soul was trying to let it be. You see, we've got to realize there's the power of God. The power of God so much that God said in Psalms 91 that you shall not be afraid. So powerful is this power of God that we don't have any reason to be afraid. The third reminder that you and I need when we're in the midst of fear, when we're surrounded by it, when it comes knocking on your door, when it gets very personal, and you start feeling it affecting you or trying to come against you. We've looked at the presence of God, the power of God. Number 3, the final one is this, the promises of God. The promises of God. Look at verse number 9 with me, is where we're going to start as we look at this. Because you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place. That's going to be important in just a moment. No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For He shall give His angels charge over you to keep you in how many of your ways? Oh, come on. How many of your ways? All your ways. And then he goes a little bit further and says this, verse 12. In your hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent. You shall trample underfoot. Because He has set His love upon me. Therefore, and I want you to notice 6 promises of God. Don't miss them. 6 I wills of God. Listen to me. If God said, I will, you can count on it. If God's Word says, I will, you can stand on it no matter what is going on in your life. And it says, beginning here in verse number 14, because He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. He shall call upon me. Listen to this. I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. And with long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. God looking down from heaven and looking at all that we're facing, knowing as His children how fearful that it's making us and how much we're giving into it and the faith in our life is beginning to lower. God says, let me give you what you need most, and you need my reassurance, and that is this. I will do this, and I will do that, and I will do this, and I will do that. And in that moment, those things are supposed to cause our faith to rise in God. But too often, the promises of God reveal more so, unfortunately, where we have put our trust instead of where we should put our trust. The promises of God come along and we read it and go, oh yeah. Then all of a sudden what that revealed was I was trusting the World Health Organization more than I was trusting God. I was trusting CVS that they would hurry up and come through with a COVID-19 test so I can find out whether I really have it or not. I was hoping that my boss was still going to pay me even though he sent me home. The promises of God more times than not reveal that our trust is in the wrong place, but it reminds us to move our trust from where we have put it and put it in its proper place, and that is in the one knowing, all-wise God who has everything under control. And here he gives 6 promises. The one that is so critical to where we're at today is found in verse number 15. Look at that one with me again. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. Did you catch how good that is? You call on God, he answers. His word also says his ears are what? Ever attentive to the cries of who? The righteous. Here he says that we will call upon him, and he says, and I will answer him. How many of you know that's good? You call on God and he answers. How many of you know he doesn't always answer the way we thought he should, though? Look at verse 15. You're going to see that. He shall call upon me and I will answer him. Then he says this, I will be with him in trouble. Somebody say, uh-oh. Uh-oh. You know what that means? God said, oh, I'm going to be with you. I'm not going to leave you. But you're going to have to walk through this. But you don't go through it alone. God, that's not what I was praying about. I was praying that you were going to give me a bonus, that I wasn't going to have to walk through this and I'd be delivered from it. God, I was believing that life was just going to be rosy. I was just believing that everything was going to be perfect. And God said this, I will be with you in trouble. And how many of you know that if God is for you, who can possibly be against you? Greater is he that is where? In you, than he that is in the world. I am more concerned about having God in me than the COVID-19 outside of me. That's right. Here God's word is saying this, I will answer. Maybe not the way you're praying, but I will answer. And I'm going to do one even greater. You want to be delivered from what you're going through, and that's fine. I can see you're human. I get why you would want that. But then God says this, but let me really demonstrate to you and to your family and to your neighbors and to your co-workers and to your extended family and to those you go to church with and to those that are in your city and to those that you interact with. I'm going to do one greater. Delivering you out of your circumstances is the easy part. Instead, I'm going to walk with you through it, and you're going to become my living testimony, my living trophy of grace, my living demonstration that you can walk fearless in the midst of a fearful world, that you can walk boldly in the midst of a world that is terrified. Listen to me, God is for us, and this is the church's greatest hour to be the church. In a fearful world, this world needs to see a fearless church, a church that believes in God, a church that puts their trust in God and no one else. We miss that when we cower in a corner. Because we're of the mistaken understanding that unless God delivers me from it, He's not answered my prayer yet. I'm going to say that again. That if God's not delivered me from it yet, then God hasn't answered my prayer. He didn't answer your prayer, but He gave you one greater. He gave Himself to you to be with you through everything that you go through. And I will tell you this, listen to me, I will tell you this. God has used me more mightily in the difficult times of my life than He's ever done in the good times of my life. He's reached more people. He's redeemed more people. He's encouraged more people. And He's done more in other people's lives by choosing to be with me in my trouble, so that this world, looking around and looking for an answer, will see an example of the mighty work of God. COVID-19 is a gift to the church. For you to be able to live fearless, I did not say foolish. If you walk out of here and for 1 minute think that Pastor Jonathan told you to stop washing your hands you need hearing aids. Or ones at work at least. I didn't say foolish. I said fearless. This is a chance, because unsaved people are going to go, aren't you shaken? Doesn't this upset you about COVID-19? Listen to me. Do you realize how big of a door of a witness that is? Do you realize how big it is when someone asks you, aren't you afraid about this? Aren't you concerned about this? Let them talk for just a minute. Let them get all their fears out on the table. Let them lay it all out there. And then just look at them and say, you know, if this had been a little while ago in my life, I would have been like that. But what's made the difference for me is a man named Jesus Christ. And then from there, you can begin to show them. Because the world is looking for an answer. Listen to me. We have the answer. His name is Jesus Christ. He is the author and the finisher of our faith. He is the one. It is God's word that said He will be with us in trouble. And God will choose more times than not to use us in our trouble to make us into something great and to reach other people with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But we don't like that one. That said, okay, let me tell you that I didn't see into your living room when you did this, but God did. Okay? I will be with him in trouble. Well, that wasn't the promise I was looking for. Oh, I will glory in my sickness, because when I'm made weak, He's made strong in me. No, that's not it either. We have that kind of Christianity where we do, that kind where we just, roll through the scriptures and find the things that, as soon as it sounds good and feels good, that's the one for us. Kind of a thing. This is not a feel-good gospel, ladies and gentlemen. This is a salvation gospel. It saves us from our sins. Puts faith in our heart, and it's time that we begin living like faithful children of God. Faithful children of God. I want to close with this morning as we get ready to have our time of prayer. There is no greater time for you and I to be men and women of prayer than right now. No greater time. If you've been looking for an opportunity to improve your prayer life, you just found it. If you've been looking for opportunities to witness to people, you've been given it. If you've been looking for opportunities to be used in the kingdom of God, to be His church, you've been given it. Sick neighbors that could need someone to drop off a casserole to them. Fearful co-workers that don't know what's going to happen, an opportunity to pray with them. Oh, you've been coming to church and asking us that God would save them, but now's your opportunity to reach out to them. Listen to me, COVID-19 is a gift to the church. This is our chance to shine. This is our chance to be great in the kingdom of God. This is a chance that you've been looking for to distinguish yourself from the rest of the world. And we do it by our faith, our confidence, and our trust in God. That fear would not shake us. But we forget who's on our side. I grew up with two smaller brothers. Many of you know that because I tell a lot of stories about growing up. Two smaller brothers, Mike and Ben. We lived in a little bitty house growing up. My parents still live in that house. They'll probably die at that house. A little bitty house. Little 2-bedroom. It's really technically a 3-bedroom, but the third one you'd call a closet. I mean, it's just not. But some of you call it a room for your shoes. I mean, it's just not very big at all, And so my two younger brothers and I, three of us, slept in the same full-size bed in the same bedroom all the way up until I was probably 15, 16 years old. Okay? Wow, that's a good way to put that. and the little 5-drawer dressers, all that we had in a little closet. That was it. That's what we had. And we went to church together all the time. We worked together because we had a farm. We went to school together. We were always together. We slept together. I mean, you get the point. We were just always together. And that's okay if you like the people you're always together with. Come on, maybe you're not being honest this morning because your sibling's here. I don't know, but don't look at them. But it's okay to smile and nod at me, this morning, You know what I'm talking about? That one sibling. It's not all of them. Usually it's just one, And I had one that was that way. My the middle son, my brother Michael, was that way. He just irritated me. You think I can talk? That boy can out-talk me any day of the week. I mean, you know, he always wanted to talk. I like things quiet occasionally. Believe that or not, I do. I like it quiet occasionally, you know. But he always had to talk, and he'd talk, and we had one bathroom in our house, and I couldn't get away from him there. I go to the bathroom, he'd stand outside the door and talk to me. You know, I'm in there looking for a towel, covering my ears with a towel, you know, and he was just always there. Always wanted to be like me, all this kind of stuff. Well, I started school first, obviously. I was in 2nd grade, I think it was, when my brother started school, Michael. He was a little nervous about going to school for the first day. And so my dad allayed his fears and just said, well, your big brother's going to be there. He's going to look out after you. He'll take care of you. I was like, am I? I don't like him, you know. I mean, you know, maybe I'll leave him on his own, you know. My dad looked at me and said, you're going to look out after your brother, so on and so forth. And I'm like, of course I'm going to say yes to him, you know, as dad. Yeah, sure, I'm going to do that. Get to school, as soon as Dad dropped us off and he drove away, I just went my direction. I just left him on his own to figure it all out. Playtime rolled around a little bit later that day, and my brother got off over in the corner of the playground somewhere, and he got cornered by a couple of bullies, and it was that whole stereotypical thing, lunch money kind of approach, you know, with him, and that kind of thing, picking on the new kid, you know, that was in the playground. And these were just punk kids themselves. I mean, they were in the same grade. They were just a little more assertive, you know, kind of a thing. So 3 of them had him cornered, and they were off over in the corner. And I'm playing with some friends, and one of my friends said to me, he said, hey, isn't that your little brother over there? And of course, you never want to admit it's your brother. You know, I'm like, oh, maybe, you know. I looked over there, and there he is, and he's cornered by these 3 kids, these 3 bullies, you know. And I'm like, oh, man, you know. Well, you know, I got to do something about that. Dad's going to have my hide, you know. And then I was like, but maybe I can just say I didn't notice, you know. Maybe I can just say I didn't see it. And finally, I'm being transparent, finally inside of me, I mustered up and thought, yeah, I'll get in trouble if I don't. So I started going over there. And as I got a little closer, I could hear them. The 3 of them had their back to me. And here was my little brother over there, and he had his head down, and he was cowering. He was surrounded. Head down, and he was cowering and stuff. And they were calling names and poking their fingers at him and kind of really putting him in his place and giving him what for, you know. And my brother was just taking it. I could tell he was scared, you know. And so about this time, though, it kicked in. Now I care, you know, at this point, you know. So I start marching a little more rapidly to get to these boys. And my brother's just taking all of this stuff that they're doing. Listen to me. We live in a culture that has surrounded you with fear. We're living in a culture that's poking at you and going, this might kill you. This will probably infect your children. This is something that's going to change. Your finances are never going to be the same again. You're going to lose all your retirement. This is going to happen. They're surrounding you. And unfortunately, we've begun doing this. We've begun forgetting what we knew to be true. And we're lowering our head and we're letting the crowd surround us and control the situation. I started hearing what they were saying. It was upsetting me a little bit, so I was walking a little bit quicker to get over there. And all of a sudden, this brother of mine, who was much smaller than them and cowering, kind of looked up for a minute. One of the boys was yelling, and through the 2 boys saw a big brother coming. And you know what my brother did? He went. And smiled. And I'll never forget, he stood up and looked at those boys almost as if he was saying, what did you say? Can you repeat that one more time? You're going to do what to me? Oh, no, you didn't say that. And all of a sudden, his shoulders went back more and more. That head went higher and higher until I showed up. Those boys didn't know what was happening. They didn't see me coming. They didn't know what was taking place. They didn't understand what was about to happen. They didn't understand all that was going on, but little brother did. And when I came around the front of those 3 little boys, and they saw me stand next to him and put my arm around him and said, this is my little brother, you're going to leave him on, they ran like cockroaches when you turn the lights on. They went in 3 different directions. Never saw him again the rest of that day, and they never picked on my brother again. Listen to me. That's because someone bigger, someone who could do something about it, showed up. And you and I serve someone who is bigger, someone who can do something about it, someone who can change our circumstances. No matter what the world has done to surround us, I'm here to tell you, if we're in the presence gospel, we will see great things happen, and our faith will rise to a whole nother level. Yes. But only when we anchor it in God. Only when we anchor it in Him. But here's where it all begins. I can't do that for you. You have to make your decision on whether you're even going to believe this message or not. Are you going to believe part of it? Or are you going to believe all of it? Or are you going to walk away from it going, you know, some of that was pretty good. I think maybe I'll apply one or two of those. Or are you ready this morning to do the spiritual warfare and say, no matter what, I don't care tomorrow if the stock market drops to minus 2,000. I am going to stand in faith. Because listen to me, God's the one that really supplies all your needs according to His riches and glory, not even the stock market. David said this, I am now old, I was once young, and I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging for bread. And I can assure you this, for every one of your stories of troubles and trials, as difficult as they are, and I know some of them are, I can tell you God is greater than anything you're going through. And He can be with you in trouble. Too often we don't invite Him into that. We don't even want to even recognize that. God's just saying, will you just recognize the reality? You're in a difficult place. But will you recognize the greater reality? And that is this, I'm with you in trouble. And if you put your trust and your faith in me, everything is going to be just fine. That's my response to fear. What's yours? What are you going to do? Because the second you leave here and turn that radio on and hear the news, fear is going to come knocking. As soon as you go home this afternoon, fear is going to come knocking. Some of you have begun to live so fearful, every time you sneeze, you're convinced that you probably have already been contaminated. It's believing in shadows and things that don't even exist. Listen to me. It's time we believe that He will be with me in my trouble. Will you pray with me right now? That's our response.